sat alone in the school cafeteria staring at the food on her tray. She did not eat it. She just moved the green beans around with her plastic fork, watching them scatter across the white plate. Around her, hundreds of students sat at crowded tables, laughing and talking. None of them saw, or if they did, they looked away quickly. Walked past her table with his group of friends. He was tall, popular, and the kind of boy that most girls at Lincoln High School wanted to date. Watched him from the corner of her eye as he approached his table across the cafeteria. He sat down and immediately looked back at. Then he pointed at her, and his friends started to laugh. Felt her face get hot. She knew what they were laughing about. It was always the same. Her clothes were not fashionable enough. Her hair was too plain. Her face was not pretty. She did not have the right shoes or the right phone or the right anything. She was wrong in every way that mattered to people like. Victoria Hayes sat down next to. She was his girlfriend, and she was beautiful in the way that made other girls want to be her. Victoria looked at and smiled in a way that was not kind. Then she whispered something in his ear, and the entire group started laughing again, louder this time. Tried to ignore them. She had learned how to ignore them over the past 3 years. She put on her earphones and pretended to listen to music. She did not actually turn on any music. She just needed something to do with her hands, something to make it look like she was busy and did not care about their laughter. This was her life at Lincoln High School. Was 17 years old and she was invisible, or worse than invisible. She was visible but only as the girl that everyone made fun of, the girl with no friends, the girl with nothing to offer, the girl who did not belong. She had tried to make friends once. In freshman year, she had sat down at a lunch table with 3 other girls who seemed nice. They had stopped talking immediately. One of them had asked her to leave. They said her seat was saved for someone else, had stood up and walked away. She had been sitting alone ever since. Teachers did not help her. They did not see the cruelty, or maybe they did see it and did not care. Had learned that adults were not always interested in protecting the weak. They were busy with their own lives. They had their own problems. A bullied girl in the cafeteria was not their concern. Her parents tried to help sometimes. They told her to ignore the bullies. They said that the kids at school were immature and did not know what they were talking about. They said that was special and that she would find her people someday. Loved her parents, but she did not believe them. They were just trying to make her feel better. The truth was that was not special. The truth was that she did not fit in anywhere. The truth was that she was alone. The school day ended the way it always did. Walked through the hallways keeping her head down. She avoided making eye contact with anyone. She knew that if she made eye contact, someone would make a comment. Someone would say something cruel. Someone would remind her that she did not belong here. She passed the girls' bathroom and heard Victoria's voice inside. Victoria was talking about her. Did not hear all of it, but she heard enough. They were talking about how quiet was, how she never said anything interesting, how she had no personality, how she would probably never have a boyfriend because no boy would ever want to date someone like her. Kept walking. She got on the school bus and sat in an empty seat near the back. The bus was loud and full of teenagers shouting over each other. Nobody noticed that was there. Nobody cared. This was how she liked it, unnoticed, invisible, safe. Her house was quiet when she got home. Her mother was still at work. Her father was in the garage working on something, went straight to her room and closed the door. She lay down on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She was tired, not just the tired that came from a long school day. She was tired of being alive. She was tired of waking up every day knowing that she would face hours of silence and coldness from the people around her. Thought about running away. She thought about moving to another city, another state, another country, somewhere where nobody knew her, somewhere where she could start over and maybe this time she would get it right. Maybe this time she would not be such a failure. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep did not come. Her mind was too busy replaying the moments from the day when people had looked at her and decided that she was not worth their time. An hour later, heard the doorbell ring downstairs. She heard her father talking to someone. Then she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Her father knocked on her bedroom door. Opened the door. Her father was holding a package. It was small and wrapped in official-looking brown paper. There was a return address printed on it but could not read it from where she stood. Her father looked confused. "This came for you today," he said. "It was left on the porch. There is no postage on it. Someone must have delivered it by hand." Took the package. It was light, not very heavy. She did not recognize the return address. She had no idea who could have sent it to her. "Open it," her father said. "Tell me what it is." tore open the brown paper. Inside was a white envelope and a small metal object that looked like a badge or a medal of some kind. The medal was silver, and it had strange markings on it that she did not recognize. She opened the letter with shaking hands. The letter was short. It said only a few things. It said that her memory had been restricted by order of the Frontier Initiative. It said that restrictions were now being lifted as a result of her 18th birthday approaching. It said that she needed to report to the headquarters immediately. It said that her past life was about to return. Did not understand what the letter meant. She looked at her father. He looked just as confused as she felt. Did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed with the letter in her hands, reading it over and over. The words did not become clearer no matter how many times she read them. If anything, they became more confusing. Her parents came into her room an hour after she had shown them the package. They were concerned. They wanted to know what the letter meant, told them that she did not know. This was true. She did not understand what the letter was saying, but something inside her felt like she was lying. Something inside her knew exactly what the letter meant. That night's dreams were vivid and real. She dreamed of a place with red skis. The sun was orange instead of yellow, and the clouds were the color of rust. She walked through this place, and the ground beneath her feet was hard and dry. The air was thin, and it was hard to breathe. Around her were other people. They looked scared. Then she dreamed of running. She was running through a tunnel with walls made of metal. Behind her, something large was chasing her. She could hear its footsteps echoing. She could hear its breathing. It was close, very close, but she kept running because stopping meant dying. She understood this with complete certainty. She jumped from the metal platform and fell through darkness. And as she fell, she shouted instructions to the other people. The people behind her listened. They jumped too. They fell into the darkness with her. Woke up with a start. Her heart was beating very fast. She was covered in sweat. It was 3 in the morning. The house was silent and dark around her. She sat in the dark and tried to understand what she had just experienced. These were not normal dreams. These dreams felt like memories. By morning, remembered more. The memories came in waves. During breakfast, she suddenly remembered the face of a man named, had been her team leader. No, that was not right. She had been the team leader, had been her second in command. He was strong and brave, but he had a weakness for sentimental attachments. He cared too much about people. This made him a good person, but sometimes a bad soldier. Put down her spoon and looked at her mother. Her mother was reading the news on her tablet. Mom said, "Do you know anything about the Frontier Initiative?" Her mother looked up from her tablet. "No," she said. "Why?" "Just curious," said. But she was not just curious. She was desperate to understand. The memories were coming faster now. They were becoming clearer. She remembered the training facility where she had learned to survive on hostile worlds. She remembered learning how to fight creatures that were stronger and faster than any human being could be. She remembered learning how to make hard decisions about who would eat and who would not, who would get medical supplies and who would be told that there were no medical supplies left. She remembered the fear. Oh, the fear was real now. The fear that she had felt when she was 17 years old and standing on the surface of a world that wanted to kill her. A world that nearly did kill many of the people around her. A world named Prime. Excused herself from breakfast and went to her room. She started searching on her computer for information about Prime. There was not much. A few scientific articles about the planet. A few news reports about the colony that had been established there. Most of the information was technical and difficult to understand. But there was one article that mentioned a crisis where the colony had nearly been abandoned due to hostile conditions and hostile. The colony had been saved by the leadership of a young colonist. The article did not say who the colonist was. It just said that the colony had survived because of this person's decisions. Knew it was her. She knew with absolute certainty that the article was talking about her. Her phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. It said only one thing. "Do you remember now? We need you. Report to coordinates 42.3601, 71.0589. Today, come alone." Looked at the coordinates on her phone. They were in the city, about an hour from her house. She did not know what she would find there, but something inside her knew that she had to go. She told her parents that she was going to the library to study. She took the bus into the city. She followed the GPS on her phone until it led her to a building that looked like any other office building. There was nothing special about it. No sign, no indication of what was inside. She went through the glass door. Inside was a reception area with a woman sitting at a desk. The woman looked at and smiled. The woman said, "We have been waiting for you, please follow me." Followed the woman down a hallway. They went down a set of stairs, then another, then another. They went very deep into the building, deeper than seemed possible. Finally, they arrived at a large metal door. The woman pressed her hand against the door and it slid open. Inside was a room full of monitors and equipment, and standing in the middle of the room was a man that recognized. She knew his face. She knew his voice. He was General Harrison. He had commanded her on Prime. He had been her superior officer. "Hello," General Harrison said. "Welcome back to the real world." Sat across from General Harrison in a small room with no windows. The walls were gray and bare. There was only a table and 2 chairs. General Harrison opened a thick file and started to explain everything. She had been part of a secret government program called the Frontier Initiative. The program recruited young people with exceptional survival instincts and trained them to survive on hostile planets. Had been selected when she was only 12 years old. Her parents had been told that she would be attending a special boarding school for gifted students. In reality, she had been trained on a facility in New Mexico and then sent to Prime when she was 14. Prime that meant it was a place where the environment actively tried to kill anything that lived there. The gravity was stronger than Earth's gravity. The atmosphere was thin and toxic. The temperature could change from freezing cold to burning hot in a matter of hours. And on the planet were predators. Intelligent predators that hunted in groups and did not stop until their prey was dead. Had been sent to that world with 300 colonists. She was the youngest member of the colony. The original mission was supposed to last 5 years, had survived for 5 years. She had trained with military personnel. She had learned to fight and to lead and to make decisions that meant life or death for the people under her command. When she was 19 years old, a crisis had occurred. A catastrophic failure in the colony's main power system. The failure had left the colony vulnerable. The predators had attacked. The government had decided to abandon the colony. They had sent a ship to pick up the surviving colonists. The problem was that not everyone could fit on the ship. Choices had to be made about who would be saved and who would be left behind. General Harrison had told that the colony would be evacuated in 2 phases. She had to choose which colonists would go in the first phase and which would go in the second phase. Had refused. She had said that she would find another way. She had taken the remaining colonists and she had led them into the underground caverns beneath the colony. Those caverns were dangerous, but they were also protected from the predators. For 3 days had led the colonists through the darkness, navigating by memory and instinct, avoiding the creatures that lived in the caves. At the end of those 3 days, rescue had arrived. All 300 colonists had been evacuated. Not a single person had been left behind. The government had decided that identity needed to be hidden. She was a hero, but she was also a symbol of human capability and courage. Other nations wanted her. Other organizations wanted her. So the government had used advanced technology to suppress her memories. They had placed her back in normal society. They had given her a normal life. She had lived for 5 years as a normal teenager, going to normal schools, having a normal childhood. But today, she had turned 18. According to the program's rules, her memory suppression could no longer be maintained once she turned 18 without her consent. The memories had started to return naturally, and now the government wanted back. General Harrison told her that she was not the only survivor. There were others like her. Young people who had survived impossible worlds and then been placed back into normal society. And now they were all being called back. The government wanted to use them for something important. Asked what that something was. General Harrison smiled. He said that humanity had been accepted into an intergalactic alliance, an alliance of advanced alien species that controlled much of the galaxy, but the other species did not respect humanity. They saw humans as weak and fragile. They did not believe that humans could be trusted with important responsibilities. And the other survivors would change that. They would show the galaxy that humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were remarkable in ways that the aliens did not understand, and they would prove it. Listen to everything that General Harrison said. She did not speak. She did not ask many questions, but inside her head she was thinking about and Victoria Hayes and all the people who had made her high school years miserable. She was thinking about how they had decided that she was worthless, how they had decided that she had nothing valuable to offer. And now she was being told that she was so valuable that the government had hidden her away, that she was so valuable that the entire galaxy needed her, That she was so valuable that she was going to represent all of humanity to an alliance of advanced alien species. When General Harrison finished talking, asked one question. "When do I leave?" she said. "Tomorrow," General Harrison said. "We have arrangements to make. Your parents will be told that you have won a scholarship to study at an overseas university. It will be a cover story. You will not be able to contact them for at least 1 year. After that, we will see." Nodded, she had expected something like this. She had known, even before she understood what was happening, that her life as the Bullied high school girl was over. It had never really been her life anyway. She went back to Lincoln High School the next morning. It was her last day there, but nobody knew it. She walked through the hallways and nobody paid attention to her. She sat in her classes and the teachers did not call on her. She went to the cafeteria and sat alone at her table. Came and stood in front of her table. He had his friends with him. Victoria Hayes was there too, holding's hand. "What are you doing Monday?" said. It was a cruel question. He already knew the answer. Never did anything on Mondays. She never did anything on any day. But looked up at him and she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. And in that moment something changed, could see it. Victoria could see it. All of his friends could see it. Was no longer the girl they could hurt. They did not know why. They did not know what had changed. But something in her eyes was different. Something in her face was different. She looked like she was looking at them from very far away. Like they were very small and she was very large. The training facility for the survivors was located on a military base in Nevada. Arrived there 3 days after leaving high school. Inside the facility, she met the others. There were 12 of them in total. 12 humans who had survived impossible worlds and been given a second life in normal society. There was who had survived 7, a planet covered in acid rain and toxic gases. There was Lisa who had survived Prime with, but they had been kept separate during their time in normal society. There was James who had survived a moon with no atmosphere and creatures that lived inside the ice beneath the frozen surface. And there were 9 others, each with their own story of survival and impossible odds. General Harrison had explained that they were being trained for one specific purpose. The Galactic Alliance needed to see that humans were capable of handling complex situations. The Alliance had organized a military and diplomatic exercise. Different species would send teams to face a series of challenges. The challenges would test both combat ability and moral decision-making. The team that performed the best would have their species recognized as equals by the entire Alliance. If humans failed, the Alliance would classify them as too unstable and too emotional to be trusted with important responsibilities. Humans would be relegated to basic labor and resource gathering. Humans would be treated as lesser beings by every other species in the galaxy. If humans succeeded, everything would change. And the other survivors trained for 6 weeks. They learned about the alien species they would be competing against. They learned about the exercise scenarios. They learned to work together as a team. They learned to trust each other with their lives. And then they were transported to an orbital station where the exercise would take place. The station was enormous. It was a massive structure built by one of the oldest species in the galaxy. The architecture was strange and angular. The corridors were wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. The Galactic Alliance had representatives present from every major species. There were who were 12 feet tall and covered in chitinous armor. There were the synthetics, artificial, that had gained sentience over millions of years. There were the ethereal ones who existed partially outside normal space and time. And there were the Guardians. The Guardians were the oldest species in the Alliance. They had established the Alliance thousands of years ago. They were the ones who made the final decisions about which species were accepted and which were not. The lead Guardian was named Keeper. He was an ancient being who had watched civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy. Keeper looked at the human team with barely concealed disdain. When approached him for the traditional greeting between competing species, she could see the dismissal in his eyes. "Humans," Keeper said, "we were not certain that you were intelligent enough to compete, but the government of Earth insisted. We have allowed it." Did not react. She had learned long ago that showing anger to people who wanted to provoke you was a mistake. Instead, she simply nodded. "We are honored to participate," she said. Keeper made a sound that might have been laughter. Then he turned away. The exercise began. The human team was placed on a simulation of a planet that was experiencing an environmental crisis. A massive solar storm was battering the planet's magnetic field. The field was weakening, and soon the entire planet would be exposed to radiation that would kill all life. There was a colony of aliens on the planet who had not yet been evacuated. The colony was located in a region that was also being invaded by hostile creatures fleeing the radiation above. The humans had 12 hours to save as many people as possible. The other teams competed simultaneously on different scenarios, but the humans could see some of their performance. What saw was concerning. The team was using brute force to solve every problem. They were strong and they were efficient, but they did not seem to care about minimizing casualties. The synthetic team was perfectly logical but completely cold. They were evacuating the colony in mathematical order, prioritizing the people who were most valuable based on pure statistical analysis. But's team was doing something different. Had decided that saving lives was not enough. The colony could not be fully evacuated in 12 hours, so she was trying to save not just the most lives but the colony itself. She had ordered her team to reinforce the colony's defense systems against the hostile creatures while simultaneously working on a way to stabilize the magnetic field. It was an impossible task. Keeper had included it specifically because it was impossible. Coordinated the defense of the colony. He organized the colonists into structured positions and used the colony's existing defenses more efficiently than anyone would have thought possible. Lisa worked on the magnetic field problem. She studied the physics of the situation and found a solution that would not fully restore the field but would provide enough stability to slow the degradation. James worked on the evacuation, but he did it differently than the other species. He did not prioritize people based on their value or their usefulness. Instead, he evacuated the vulnerable first. The children, the elderly, the injured. He got them out of danger first, then came back for the others. And moved between all of these tasks, making sure that everyone was working toward the same goal. Saving the colony, saving the people, preserving the connection between the colonists and their home. With 2 hours remaining, James reported a problem. The evacuation was behind schedule. They would not be able to evacuate all of the remaining colonists before the radiation storm arrived. There were still 200 people on the planet. Made a decision that went against every tactical principle. She ordered the final evacuation shuttle to take everyone who was left. All 200 people. They would have to squeeze them into the shuttle. It would not be comfortable. It might not even be safe. But she refused to leave anyone behind. And Lisa went to the colony's main power generator. They used a manual override to initiate an emergency shutdown that would protect the colony's systems from the radiation without destroying the colony itself. They barely escaped before the radiation hit the planet. The shuttle with 200 people on board lifted off just as the radiation storm crashed down on the planet. The radiation would have killed every person on the planet if they were still there. But they were not. They were safe on the shuttle. The human team saved the colony and saved all 200 remaining colonists. No deaths, no sacrifices, no people left behind. When the exercise ended, Keeper watched the results. He watched the team report their casualties. He watched the synthetic team report their efficiency ratings. Then he watched the humans step forward to report their results. "We saved everyone," said. "The colony is damaged but intact. The colonists are safe. There are no deaths." Keeper stared at for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. It was not disdain, it was something else. "You were not supposed to save everyone," he said. The formal presentation of results took place 3 days after the exercise ended. The Great Council chamber on the orbital station was filled with representatives from every major species in the Galactic Alliance. The chamber was designed to be impressive. The ceiling was dozens of meters high. The walls were decorated with symbols representing each of the species present. There were thousands of seats arranged in concentric circles. Keeper stood at the central podium. Behind him were screens showing the performance data from all the teams that had competed in the exercise. The presentation was methodical and thorough. Each species' results were displayed. Each team's achievements and failures were documented. The synthetics had achieved 98% efficiency. They had successfully eliminated all hostile threats to the colony. The ethereal ones had solved the environmental problem through pure scientific understanding. But when Keeper displayed the human team's results, something changed in the atmosphere of the chamber. The data showed that the humans had not achieved the highest efficiency rating. They had not been the fastest. They had not optimized every aspect of the mission. But they had saved everyone. While other teams had accepted casualties as inevitable, the human team had refused to accept that anyone had to die. While other teams had made calculated decisions about who was most valuable and worth saving, the human team had insisted that every life had equal value. While other teams had prioritized the objective, the humans had prioritized the people. Keeper presented this data without commentary. He simply showed the screens and let the results speak for themselves. Then he turned away from the podium and looked directly at where she stood with her team in the center of the chamber. The Galactic Alliance has evaluated the performance of humanity, Keeper said. There has been debate about whether humans possess the qualities necessary to be considered equals within this alliance. Some have argued that humans are too emotional, too irrational, too bound by sentimental attachments to be trusted with important responsibilities. Keeper paused. The chamber was completely silent. Those who argued this way were wrong, Keeper said. What we have observed in this exercise is not weakness. It is strength. The humans did not solve the exercise through superior technology or physical power. They solved it through moral courage and through their willingness to sacrifice for those they were responsible for protecting. This is a quality that has been rare among species for thousands of years. This is a quality that the Galactic Alliance needs. Keeper raised his hand. I move that humanity be granted full membership status in the Galactic Alliance with all the rights and responsibilities that come with such membership. The vote was immediate, nearly unanimous. Only 2 species abstained. The rest voted in favor. Humanity had been accepted, and her team returned to Earth 3 weeks later. The trip through space took no time at all, thanks to the advanced technology provided by the Galactic Alliance. When they landed at the military base in Nevada, General Harrison was waiting for them. You did it, he said simply. We did what we were supposed to do, replied. We represented our species the way we thought they should be represented. Took a leave of absence. She went back to see her parents for the first time in 6 months. They had been told that she was away at an overseas university. They had no idea what she had actually been doing. They could not be told, not yet. The secrecy was still in place. But her mother looked at and she could tell that something was different. Was not the sad girl who had left their house 6 months ago, was confident, was proud, was the person she was always meant to be. After 2 weeks at home, returned to work. The government wanted to use her and the other survivors as liaisons between humanity and the other species in the Galactic Alliance. Accepted. She would dedicate her life to helping humanity take its place among the stars. But before she went back to work, she made one request. She asked to visit her old high school one more time. General Harrison was hesitant, but he agreed. Went back to Lincoln High School on a Friday afternoon. The school was the same. The hallways looked the same. The cafeteria looked the same. Everything was exactly as she remembered it. She walked through the hallways and found in the library. He was studying with his friends. When saw, he did not recognize her at first. She had changed. She was different, more confident, more present. He said finally, I thought you went to school overseas. I did, said, but I had to come back for a few things. Looked awkward. He probably remembered bullying her. He probably felt some guilt about it. But he probably did not think it was a big deal. That was how most bullies thought. Did not say anything about the bullying. She just told and his friends about her new job. She told them that she would be working for the government as a liaison to an international organization. She told them that she would be traveling frequently and working on important projects that she could not discuss. She did not tell them that the international organization was actually an alliance of alien species. She did not tell them that she had survived on and led people through impossible situations. She did not tell them any of the truth about who she really was. She just smiled and said goodbye. As walked out of Lincoln High School for the last time, she did not look back. She did not need to look back. That chapter of her life was closed. That version of was gone. 3 months later, news broke that the government had been hiding survivors in normal society. News outlets around the world started investigating. Journalists wanted to know who these survivors were, what they had done, where they had gone. The government tried to keep it quiet, but they could not. The story was too big. The story was too important. Humanity had survivors from hostile worlds living among them. Humanity had extraordinary people who had been hidden away. His name became public. News outlets showed her picture. They published stories about her survival on Prime. They talked about how she had led people through impossible situations. They called her a hero. Saw the news reports. Victoria Hayes saw them. Everyone from Lincoln High School saw them. The girl they had bullied was famous. The girl they had decided was worthless had turned out to be extraordinary. Felt a strange mixture of shame and regret. He had been cruel to a girl who had already survived more than most people would ever endure. He had tried to make her feel small when she was actually larger than he could ever be. But did not spend any time thinking about or Victoria or any of her former bullies. She was too busy working on humanity's future. She was too busy showing the Galactic Alliance that humans deserved respect and equality. She was too busy living the life that she had earned. Years passed, became known throughout the Galactic Alliance as one of humanity's greatest diplomats and strategic minds. She represented Earth in negotiations with dozens of alien species. She helped establish trade agreements that benefited all parties. She prevented wars and resolved conflicts that could have devastated entire star systems. She had come from the lowest point possible. She had been bullied and isolated and invisible. And from that low point, she had risen to become one of the most respected figures in the galaxy. The girl who had sat alone in the high school cafeteria, pushing green beans around her plate and pretending to listen to music, had conquered not just but an entire galaxy. And it had all started the day she stopped being afraid to be herself. No, said, we were not, but we did. Keeper nodded slowly. The exercise is complete, he announced to the gathering. The results will be evaluated. But could see it in his eyes. He understood now. He understood what humans were. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they had something that the other species did not have. They had the willingness to sacrifice everything for their people. They had the courage to try impossible things. They had the moral strength to make decisions based on compassion rather than logic. Humans had arrived at the Galactic Alliance as weak newcomers, but her team had shown the galaxy that weakness and strength were not the same thing. Sometimes the strongest thing a being could do was to care. Did not know what to say, he turned around and walked away with his friends. Victoria went with him, but she looked back at once. In her eyes was a question that would never answer. That was the last day of high school for. By Monday, she was gone. She was already on her way to the Frontier Initiative headquarters. She was already on her way to becoming something greater than any of them could imagine. Would graduate with his friends. Victoria Hayes would go to a good college. They would have the normal lives that they had always expected to have, but would change the course of human history, and they would never even know it. Opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Around her, the memories crashed down like a wave. She was not the bullied high school girl. She was the soldier, the leader, who had survived Prime and brought back over 300 people alive. She was a survivor. She was extraordinary. She was everything that and Victoria Hayes could never be, and very soon the entire world would know it. But then something happened inside's mind. It was like a door opening in her thoughts. Images started to flood in, memories that were not memories, places she did not remember visiting, people she did not remember knowing, and most of all, a feeling deep inside her chest that told her something very important. Was not who she thought she was, and her real life was only just beginning.